and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichten, and with me today is Leo Sun. Leo, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Ryan. It's been a little bit interesting. I mean, I feel like a week ago we were just talking about all these crazy wildfires, and lo and behold, last week, unfortunately, there was a fire just about 2 miles away that started from where I live, and so my entire neighborhood had to evacuate. And luckily, they put it out within a couple hours, but it was just one of those like, oh shoot, like it's go time, like it's that close to us, and so that was pretty crazy. That was I think last Thursday. And then now, fast forward about 48 hours or 72 hours later, it was raining today here in SoCal. So it's kind of been up and down, but at least the winds seem to have changed for the Timberwolves, so that's good. So a little bit of consistency there is a welcome sight for me.
Yeah, well, glad to see that you're safe. I'm sure the rain is something you guys appreciate out there at any time. But yeah, just glad you've been able to avoid the worst of it. And kind of thinking about people that haven't been as lucky out there. But yeah, we can talk about the Wolves, and yeah, certainly last time we did a pod on Martin Luther King Day. They had lost another clutch game to Memphis, and it just kind of felt like they were stuck in this 500 kind of loop, and maybe 2 games doesn't change that, but they've gotten 2 wins since. Got the 1-point win against the somewhat depleted Mavs team, and then they played a Denver team on Saturday afternoon that's been playing great for a good few weeks, if not months, and they kicked their butt pretty much from start to finish. I guess before we kind of hop into the main part of the show, what were your thoughts about just kind of that another ass kicking of the Denver Nuggets?
Yeah, that has to have been the best game of the season for the Timberwolves in terms of having some real hope moving forward. I mean, obviously, they're not a complete team right now. We won't be able to see that until Dante comes back, and we'll see what happens the next week and a half before the trade deadline. But there's so many great things that you can take away from that. Whether we'll talk about in the show, but Rob's minutes, and really picking his spots well. Rudy coming back to life to this kind of type of performer that we saw him be last season, and Julius really picking his spots as well too. So there's so many great things they can extrapolate from that Denver win. Same with not quite the same with the Mavericks game, but again, they made it count when they really needed to. They pulled it out, and Zombie Dallas team is still a team that would have made a lot of negative headlines had they lost to the Mavericks, no matter who's playing, given what happened in the postseason last year. So they avoided disaster, you could say.
Yeah, it's just been a solid stretch. I just thought like the game last night, it felt like just watching it like a totally different team than really has played all year, especially offensively. Really just it felt a lot closer to the team of last year than it has the team of this year. But obviously you don't want to take too much away from a 2-game stretch, but yeah, it does feel like something is on the up and up. I know I always bring up the schedule, or at least I've kind of been harping on that the past few days, and it doesn't seem like a total coincidence to me that they finally got an extra day off before a game and they have their best game of the season. Like, that doesn't feel like a total coincidence. And now that schedule, well, the travel schedule certainly lights up. They have a bunch of home games here. The rest schedule does not lighten up. So, but like with these back-to-backs, it's certainly a lot easier to have a home back-to-back than it is these road back-to-backs, or basically any travel involved in a back-to-back obviously makes it a lot harder. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I was to say, I mean, like, there's reason to be optimistic, not just about how well they play coming off rest, but Ryan, that was an afternoon game that the Timberwolves sandblasted a potential finals competitor, right? Their contender. So I think that was what was so, unbelievable about that game. I mean, yes, they played really well. We hadn't seen them score that many points. They had set a record season high for their points in the first half, et cetera, things like that. But they did it on a game that we've been so used to seeing the Wolves just be like, maybe Ant doesn't get ready for afternoon games very well. Some of the older guys are not in their routine, so every excuse, but they really showed up. So I think that was super impressive to me.
Yeah, I agree. The Nuggets were the ones that kind of look like the sleepy Wolves on a Saturday afternoon. Right. The Wolves came out just clearly with more of the aggression in that one, which is great to see at the unusual time. But we can hop into Howl or Foul, kind of starting with that Denver game. They, like we mentioned, they picked up 2 big wins against 2 teams they faced in the playoffs last year. But however foul, the Wolves will have a chance to win multiple playoff series and get back to the Western Conference Finals like they did last year with the current roster.
To win multiple playoff series with this roster, I'm gonna go with foul on that. Though, yes, I love the optimism, and I think we need more of that, especially in the fan base right now, where it's really easy to be pessimistic. But I am still saying how I'm pumping the brakes because we've seen this iteration of the team put together multiple 3 to 4 game winning streaks, but also multiple 3 to 4 game losing streaks as well too. And I mean, that's how much it would take to be able to lose a playoff series, no matter who their opponent is. And to me, they're still a little too hard to trust. And they've proven capable of beating any team on any given night, right? Against the Knicks, who, yes, they were resting Cap, but they played them really well. They played the Boston Celtics really well a couple times, and obviously they smoked the Nuggets. But they've also proven that they're able to lose to basically any team either.
Mm-hmm.
So the consistency just isn't there enough for me to trust they can win against the same team 4 times, multiple times, against multiple series in a row. And so there's still time for them to get there, but I just have a hard time trusting them winning more than just maybe one series right now because you think about the caliber of teams that they may have to face in the second round. I mean, are the Wolves going to be able to claw up to maybe be fortunate to be on the 2-3 side of the bracket where they can avoid OKC? I mean, you've talked a lot, Ryan, about how we should be doing everything we can to avoid the Thunder if we actually want to make any type of postseason run. I don't know if we'll be able to avoid them, but yeah. So I could see maybe winning one playoff series, but I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. What about you?
Yeah, I'm actually going to say, do they have a chance? How? Yes, I do think they have a chance. Is it a high chance? No. I think to say like that it's any like big probability would kind of discount the problems that we've seen so far and discount like an injury that we've seen to DiVincenzo that might linger. But just like I think kind of the last couple weeks, the standings have kind of solidified themselves. OKC's kind of solidified itself as the number one team a long time ago, but like I expect 2, 3, 4 to be Houston, Memphis, and Denver. Maybe one of those teams has a slippage. Maybe Denver's run. I guess Denver would probably be the least likely team if they were kind of on a win streak coming into that Wolves game. If that part of their team is not who they are and they just showed themselves against the Wolves, I don't know. But that seems like the most likely. And the next kind of 5 through 10 really is kind of 5 through 11 is kind of up in the air. The next 2 right now are Clippers, Lakers. I think like those are teams the Wolves could pass. And then there's just this hodgepodge of Wolves, Suns, Mavs, injured Mavs, Kings, and then Warriors. And then I think the Spurs will kind of slowly kind of fade away from playoff contention. But if they can get up to 5 or 6 and they're like looking at like, I mean, I'm just kind of thinking about like they've played Houston twice. They've beat them once. Like, was there anything in that matchup that made you think, oh, there's no way they can beat Houston? Same with Memphis. I know they lost to them twice, but they probably should have won one or both of those games. And they've beaten Denver twice and obviously just cooked them. None of those matchups like seem like impossible feats for the Wolves. But I do agree with you that even if I feel that way, like it does, what I'm saying does discount like the real problems that they do have. So I don't want to make it likely or even like a solid possibility, but to me it's like a high enough chance where you shouldn't be, the Wolves are never going to tank, but like I think there's enough there to still be focusing kind of more on this year than like totally just like starting Josh Minot or something crazy like that.
Yeah, I mean, we get both sides of the coin when we're talking about how strong the West is, but how much parity there is in the West, right? Where
Yeah.
you look at those opponents, I mean, save the Thunder, like you mentioned, any one of those other teams, like we can beat them just as much as we can lose to them. So that's what makes it so scary going in, even to a play-in game where it's like we can play a team that's it's very possible that we could lose to them because it's probably going to be a quality team. So that keeping that in mind, then yeah, I mean anything is possible, but that's what makes it so scary. Where it's like one week like last week we're like, hey, we should be focusing a little bit more on next season, developing Rob Dillingham, and then this year and now a week later we're like, oh, you know what? If we climb up to 5 or 6, and well, I mean getting up to 5 or 6 may or may not depend on how much we're relying on Rob Dillingham. We'll talk about him later on as well too, but yeah, anything is possible still with the season, which is kind of crazy to think about because if you had no idea what the wins and losses were on the Wolves records and all you heard were social media reactions and just
Hmm.
looking at like player demeanor, you would think that the Wolves are outside of the play-in looking in. They have no chance to even, they might be able to get into play-in, where it's like, no, I mean, if you look at it, we're still right there, which is kind of crazy to think about. So yeah, I mean, there's reason for optimism for sure.
Yep. And I still don't disagree. Like there should be an increased focus on next year, because as much as I talk about like the playoffs matchups, I didn't mention OKC, which I just think is like another up, like just mountain that I'm not sure this team is ready to climb. And like looking at the Eastern Conference, I might like say like the top, certainly the top three teams in the East are better than any non OKC team in the West, that, at least in my opinion. So, the West is certainly a whole lot deeper than the East, but the talent at the top, the West or the East might have the advantage. We can kind of move on to our next topic. The Wolves' offense has just been fantastic. The past 8 games, offensive rating of 121.1 in the last 8 games. That's the third best in the NBA. And there's been points in the season where the Wolves have had a bottom 10 offense. Probably like the first 30 games they were at that mark. So to see them have even a small sample size of success, and most of those games were against quality defenses, is great. They're now up to 14th on the season, kind of tracking that as well. I think it got down to 21. So to see it at 14, and especially like coming into the season, our biggest thing was like, well, they were 17th in offense. That is, if they're going to want to make whatever play, like it's got to be top 10. So to see them trend even close to that, I think is a good sign. But the howler foul here, Minnesota's offense has officially turned a corner. I'm going to say how. I do think the offense, it won't continue to be third best. But I don't think, I mean, we kind of saw the first 8 games of the season were solid. They were shooting so many threes, making a good amount of them. Offense looked great. That's kind of when we had the bet of which side, offense or defense, would be better, and it kind of nosedive. The offense nosedive almost from that episode, and so it's been good to see it come back. And I do think this is for real. Like like the Denver game, they were just scoring in the paint constantly. Like, so it's not like if they were just like having a hot shooting stretch, I would kind of pump their brakes. But I haven't dove into what exactly their 3-point shooting is, or their high variance shooting is. It seems real, and like the stuff that's going on with Jaden, he just seems like a much better part of the offense. The last game or two, Rudy, they've done a much better job of like getting him involved in the offense, which is always something. It sounds like counterintuitive, like get your worst player the ball. That's the way to go. But there was early in that first half, there was just so many. They were finding him under the rim, the short rolls, and he was making the right pass. He made like a floater. Like anytime Rudy makes a shot from even a few feet away from the rim, you're like, oh, we got a shot tonight. Here we go. Obviously, the Denver game, the game 7 with the fadeaway is obviously the prime example of that. But I do think that like the offense, if I had to guess, like rest of the season, will the offense be 14th or higher? I would probably say above 14th. I would go above and not what we saw toward the end of the season. But I guess a potential trade at the trade deadline could affect that. What do you think, Howler foul in the Wolves offense?
Yeah, right. Well, when Rudy is cooking on offense, and that man does not cook a lot. That man orders takeout. He has someone else cook his food, because Rudy is not someone that is a chef. He does not cook a lot. But when he's cooking on offense, you're in line for a long night. Because I remember, I think it was the Mavericks game. Perhaps it was Mavericks, or it was the Dallas Memphis game, I think, where Rudy was trying to play like Nikola Jokic, where he had like these terrible passes, or it's like, what was he doing? He's just totally out of space. And I tweeted on the Canis Hoopus, or skeeted, sorry, on the Blue Sky Canis Hoopus account, where I said that Rudy Gobert trying to play like Nikola Jokic is probably a bad idea. But if you watch that first quarter of that Nuggets game, he was playing I mean, I wouldn't say Nikola Jokic, but I mean, he had, I think, 4 assists in the first couple minutes there. He was hitting these little drop off, like, again, the little floaters. He was playing like Nikola Jokic, but not because Nikola Jokic wasn't playing defense the way that Rudy Gobert played in that first quarter either. So maybe a better version. But no, to the original question of how or foul on the Wolves offense officially turning a corner, I'm going to say how, because Ryan, I might have to go to Total Wine or Bevmo and buy myself a beer, because I I hardly drink one beer, let alone two. And the way that's going right now, you might owe me 2 beers at the end of the season. So for you listeners that haven't been following along, Ryan and I made a bet that the Wolves offensive rating made it in the top 10, that he would owe me 2 beers, and the defense finished in the top 10 defensive rating. I would owe him 2 beers. So for the first time, I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic on my side of it. But like you said, the numbers look great, and they've come against mostly quality opponents, save for the last 8, save for maybe Washington and the Zombie Mavericks there. A couple stats for you here. They're 5th in free throw rate in the last 8 games. They're 9th in assist ratio. They're 8th in second chance points. They're 1st in 3-point percentage, 3rd in true shooting percentage. And even when you look at it, I mean, you talked about how early in the season the Wolves offense looked good. They were hitting a ton of threes. Well, 5 of those last 8 games, they've played without Dante DiVincenzo, who is probably their best volume 3-point shooter outside of Ant, obviously. Now, when you look at the offense rating in the past 5 games without Dante, one of their second best 3-point shooter, the Wolves offense is still 120, which is 6th best in the league. So they're doing it without Dante, which is really important to me, because I feel like that's why I feel like they're turning a corner. It's not just because, oh, well, they're hitting a ton of threes. Like, yes, Mike Conley's hit some threes, Jaden scoring inside 2-point range, things like that. But you can see it aesthetically, like eye test wise, they're moving the ball a lot more. They're committed to, running more offensive sets. You see Julius, being a little bit more selfless out there as well too. Like, you're seeing those indicators out there that I was like, okay, I feel like the team is really starting to buy into, like, we need to stop taking quote unquote the hard path, as Chris Finch has always said, is that, they should do things the easier way. And I think it was Mike Conley that said in one of the media availabilities about that, he feels like maybe the team gets bored sometimes. The team gets bored of playing a certain way where they're like, oh yeah, we're getting great shots by moving the ball around. So they start playing isolation instead, where it's like, okay, well, no, it seems like they're starting to commit to doing what's right, and that's easier. So for me, it's a howl.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm just hoping that they can keep doing this, because like if they, it's very, like, the offense is going to be top 10. Like, it's been, even when they, like, they're 7th on the season, I would expect it to ideally be closer to top 5. But I guess without Dante, that's a bit too tall of an order. But yeah, it's kind of brings us to our next topic. Rob Dillingham had a fantastic game. Kind of, I think, one of his best games. Maybe not considering the scoring came in the first half, but he had 10 points, 4 assists, and 5 rebounds. That's a big one. Shortest guy in the court, grabbed 5 rebounds. And I just thought he was fantastic. Obviously, he had like the scoring burst at the end of the first quarter, early second quarter. But I just thought, like, here's something funny I thought of, and maybe this is just a crappy Denver defense from Saturday. If you play 2K and you set it, honestly, even whatever you can do the hardest difficulty. If you just run a simple pick and pop, the CPU doesn't guard it at all properly. You run a simple pick and roll, both defenders go with the big, or go with the ball handler, you kick it back to the big wide open 3. And like, it's just like the CPU doesn't know how to guard it. And it's frustrating when you play online, because you got to like switch to the center defender and yank him over to the popping big. And like, some of these Rob pick and roll actions remind me of that, where, like, again, maybe this has to do more with Denver than Dillingham, but like, Rob gets into the paint and like, there's just no one. He just makes a simple pass back to Julius or Nas from wide open 3. And as part of that is the defense, but like, I just think that's like an action they could get to over and over and over with, even if it's Rudy rolling, Nas and Julius popping, or whoever else. Like, it just seems like that's such a big thing. They don't really have with like Conley and Gobert's pick and roll game kind of dying off this year. Like, they don't have like a true, obviously Ant's a very good pick and roll ball handler, but like, they don't really have a pick and roll passer. Ant gets, like, his pick and roll production is from walking into 3-pointers. So that's what I was like most impressed with Rob, is just making the easy pass, finding the open guy, and then obviously the 3-point shots, or whatever this, like I said, Ant walking into 3. Rob had one of those where he just walked into an open 3 and drained it. To see him be able to do that already at 19, I think is huge. And so the howl or foul was the Denver game indicative of how good he can be this year? I really do think so. I'm a howl there, really high on Rob Dillingham. I know a lot of people are. I was at a Twins event, Minnesota Twins podcast event on a Saturday, and I saw Tom Schreier zone coverage, and he just came up to me and he was just gushing over over Dillingham's game. And they're just going to need him to be very, very good, just with the roster makeup, and maybe not this year. Obviously the defense is still an issue, but like they're just going to need Rob to continue to be this good, and be like a fringe, a starting level point guard in this league, because that's like they're hung up on money, as many teams are. What do you think? Holler foul on this being who Rob can be?
I'm for sure a Howl on this as well too. I don't think that Rob is going to play this great every single game. I mean, as we saw in the Mavericks game, I mean he
Mhm.
struggled quite a bit in that, but I definitely think that he's absolutely capable of doing that. And I'm expecting him to play like this more than he does the way that he played against the Mavericks. Now, Rob has only played 15 minutes or more 6 times this season, and of those 6 times, 3 of them have come in the calendar month of January. You know, especially since Dante DiVincenzo went out, and so the opportunities are going to be there for him because for a player, the way that he plays, he needs to get in a rhythm and he has to feel confident. He's not quite a Nas Reed where he just comes in and he'll just like bomb a three immediately. Like he's a guy that he has to find his rhythm. He needs to feel out the defense, and he's one of those types of dudes. And so I think the more minutes that he gains, the more confident that he'll be. And he's talked about it so much in his post game press conferences as well too. Is that he's just feeling so much more confident in there. His players are always hyping him up, and when asked about making mistakes on defense, I mean, he talks about how, Jaden's in his ear saying, hey, don't worry, we're not going to make you look bad in film session because I'm going to be right behind in the back line. I'm going to swat that for you. I'm going to clean it up for you. So he feels that confidence. I think the more he plays with his teammates, the more free he's going to play. And the more free that Rob plays, the better it's going to be. He scored, as you mentioned in that Denver game, 10 points in the first 5.5 minutes he was on the court. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy efficiency that he's going to be, he was scoring on it. I think there's a couple plays I want to highlight from that Denver game, and other than the shooting, there was one play I think in the first quarter when he came in. It was kind of frenetic start. I think like he was hitting shots, but he was kind of all over. He turned it over carelessly. One time got picked from behind, but then I think he airballed a floater, but then he hit like a questionable fadeaway. So it's kind of all over the place. But there was one play where he went skying up for a defensive rebound and just snatched it away from like 2 Mavericks players, like out of nowhere. Like no one expected him to come. I think the commentators, where I think it was on ABC that day, where they were even like, "Oh, and the smallest guy comes out with a rebound," and you see that effort from him, and that's what's going to go a long way. That's what the Wolves are really going to be missing. I think, other than the 3-point shooting from Dante's absence, is someone that has to be playing with that high energy, crashing for boards, even at his size. So I think he's like surprisingly athletic. So that was one play. The other one was, I think, in the fourth quarter, early in the start. It was a broken play, and he had the ball left corner, and Rudy comes to set a pick for him. It was right at the end of the shot clock, and it was kind of a bailout situation. He runs the pick and roll with Rudy, and then just dumps it off. He just finds Rudy in space, cutting to the rim from the baseline, and Rudy gets fouled. He goes and makes a couple free throws, and that really impressed me because it didn't yield a lot of points, because it's showing that he's starting to learn and adapt, and that's the type of thing that we would see Mike Conley and Rudy run all the time, that empty side pick and roll. And to see Rob being able to learn and adapt and grow his game, where it's like, okay, well, I don't need to just take 10 dribbles and then shoot a step back, jump shot or something, where it's like he can play with his teammates. So I really, really love to see that. And you kind of saw in garbage time there in the fourth quarter, where he was playing with, Jalen Clark and Leonard Miller. His box score kind of got jacked up by that, because he was turning the ball over a lot more. He was missing quite a few shots here at the end. But Rob, to me, stands as a guy that seems to play better when he has better players on the court. Now, that should sound something that's self-explanatory, but not really. I mean, there are some players where, if he has a bunch of garbage players around him, then like give him the ball, he'll put up some numbers. But Rob is a guy that, he elevates his play with the type of players that he has out there. So if you surround him with guys not that great, then might not get that great of a result. So yeah, absolutely impressed.
Yeah, and I think, just thinking about, like, I know Jack came on and he said he wants Rob to start, and I kind of pushed back on a little bit. I don't see that as the best way to go, but I do think, like, maybe not every single minute Mike sits, but like Rob should be getting most of the minutes Mike is on the bench at this point. I just think, like, we talk about focusing on this year versus next year. I just think that's like a place where you're going to get a lot more benefit just giving Rob minutes, getting him to figure out some of this stuff. And maybe if it costs you a win or two, I'm kind of dubious that it would even. But even if it does, or maybe you every first half you give him the same rotation where he's in line for 20 minutes, and if isn't working, the matchup isn't there, he's not playing well, then you can adjust in the second half. But making sure at least once a game he gets a solid run, like you said, to get a rhythm to do this, because it's very clear. I think Dante will probably start at point guard next year. That's probably, but like Rob is their point guard of the future. If Rob is who they think they drafted, I think like we're gonna hopefully have Rob and Ant kind of as your two guards for a while here. So it's never too soon to kind of get him some reps, but you also don't want to wreck his confidence, which we certainly have not seen so far. He's the confidence has been there, and I know Finch at practice. This was on Friday, kind of talking about like Rob defensively, and he said he's always going to give up size, he's always going to give up strength. So the one thing you can't give up is like attention to detail and quickness and like reading the defense. So that's like kind of the stuff he's learning still. I would kind of throw like effort into that basket, which he hasn't. He's been great like effort wise, and like I think like he realizes or he knows like his path to being like I'm sure he's uber confident in his offensive game. But like I think he knows like the defense is going to be like the make or break for his career being maybe say a ceiling of an all-star caliber player or just like a fun
Highland.
Pretty much. Yeah. So I think like having that realization while also like being willing to work and really willing to put in the effort, I think just goes a long way, because I think like maybe Bones, I don't watch enough of him to know, but like maybe effort is a problem for Bones or other
There's
players
a reason
of that
you don't
type.
see Bones play that much. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to watching Rob. I'd expect him to stick in the rotation pretty much the whole year, even if Dante comes back. One interesting thing from practice is Dante. This was before they announced the kind of the injury update. But he was shooting around at practice, kind of getting some shots up. Obviously, he was making sure not to be putting too much weight on his foot. But I think they said, what was it, 6 weeks that he's reevaluated.
Yep.
So that does not mean he's coming back in 6 weeks. That's still like dead minimum 2 months, and it might be closer to 2.5, 3. That's just like that's how reevaluating in 6 weeks works. But hopefully that they've avoided like his season being over. I feel like they would have announced that if that was more of a possibility. So that does kind of like going for whatever playoff run. Getting Dante back like sooner than they got Cat back last year, I think kind of has to stick in your mind, and I guess we'll see how they do the next week or two before the deadline too, because that's obviously they go into tailspin before that. That'll change some things.
Yeah, to clarify, so Dante's gonna be reevaluated in 3 weeks. So during the All-Star break.
My bad.
And so so in 3 weeks he'll be reevaluated. And yeah, as you mentioned, a lot of people had, kind of the social media doctors out there has said that this type of injury could be anywhere from 2 to 6 months. And so in 3 weeks it'll be about it'll be about the little over a 1 month period. And so if we're talking about the early end of that 2 to 6 month period, would be coming back late March. Early April. So that'll be right before the end of the regular season, as you mentioned. So I mean that's definitely good news though. I know that when you and Jack were talking about it, it's one of those like, oh well, is that it for Dante? Well, it seems like it might not, because again, reevaluate the second opinion seemed to bear like definitive good news. It wasn't just like we don't know still. I mean, yes, anything could happen in the reevaluation, but it definitely seemed to rule out any type of a like, okay, well, yeah, he has to get surgery, which for sure would have ended his season. So.
Yeah, and I think like unfortunately, like we still they can't rule out that this injury just could linger.
Sure.
Like it's
sure.
I think people like, okay, he's reevaluated in this many weeks, like he's going to be back a couple weeks after that, and he might, but like it's not linear. It's not, maybe he feels good, he plays for a few weeks and it's tightening up on him again, who knows. So it's kind of a wait and see approach. I think they'll probably announce something after the All-Star break, and we'll go from there. But I don't. I think like people see the reevaluate in 3 weeks and go, "Oh, we'll be back in 3 weeks." No.
Right.
I think late March would still be like the
earliest. Yeah.
Yeah, like an earliest outcome for that. But maybe the All-Star break will help everyone. They still have a ton of games. They still have 3 back-to-backs for between now and in the All-Star break. So I guess get him in now because you're going to get the rest. But yeah, next topic. Rudy Gobert was also fantastic in that Denver game. Really locked down the paint. Jokic had, let me make sure I get this number right. He had 3 rebounds, which is just insane. He had 5 straight triple doubles coming into the game, and they 3 rebounds. Like, I don't even know like how they even. I mean, I guess the Wolves only missed 44% of their shots, so maybe there wasn't as many misses for Jokic to grab, but like that just shows how well I did. He's been fantastic this season. I thought Jokic was pretty darn bad. That's as bad as I've seen him play. Well, just one game, so whatever. But whew, I thought Jokic was bad in that game, which I guess is by his standards because the 2 times he was wide open for 3, I was like, oh crap, those are going in. But yeah, back to Rudy. He was fantastic. Like defense, obviously. Rebounding, 14 rebounds. That's been like a huge thing with Rudy. Like I don't know what the rebounding issue was. He kind of talked about it at practice Friday, and I just think confidence and mentality is such a big part of that. I don't know why it's been gone, but hopefully that's back. But the playmaking from him, like on the short roll and in the that short mid range area, I thought was really really good, and they just kind of keep leaning into that as much as it scares you when Rudy has the ball in space or whatever. But he had 5 assists, 0 turnovers. That's great. Yeah, I just thought like that was the Rudy we saw last year. So like my howler foul was like Rudy Gobert will have a dominant second half. I'm just gonna go howl. I do think we're gonna get closer to the Rudy we saw last year, which hopefully will like unlock this team that while they have tons of flaws, the talent is there. Like this should be as like you watch like the Clippers or the Lakers or the Suns, and it's like they're better than these teams. Like we should be able to create some gap in the schedule in the standings from these type of teams. And for whatever, like the theoretical like playoff run, I've said is not impossible. If that's going to happen, it's going to be because Rudy's going to play like the defensive player of the year. I mean, he's not going to win the award. Wemby's going to win it, but like he needs to play at that caliber. So howler foul on that being possible for Rudy, in your opinion?
Yeah, I'll give Rudy his praise in that. I mean, he was great in this game against the Nuggets and the Mavs game. I mean, he struggled rebounding a bit, but I mean, he was 8 for 8 from the free throw line, so that was kind of cool. But ultimately, I mean, as far as is this the Rudy Gobert that we'll see having a dominant second half of the season, I'm gonna say foul. Not that I don't think he's capable. I do think he's capable of playing like this, but we've seen the spurts enough to know that this might be sporadic, and he's not getting any younger. Again, there wasn't really much made about any type of serious Rudy injury that was going to. It was just more kind of like murmuring about, is he hurt or not? But I was thinking about this a little bit where I'm like, okay, obviously he played in the Olympics this last year, right? I remember when we first got him 2 years ago, he had just played in the World Cup and he was kind of dinged up.
Yeah.
So is this just going to be a thing where I was thinking this to myself? Is this going to be a thing where like every other year, whether it's a World Cup or the Olympics, like Rudy's just going to have like a terrible start to the next season or maybe even the whole next season? As I went at his basketball reference page, I was like looking back, like, all right, every other year, how did it look? Because like last year, he won Defensive Player of the Year, and he didn't have any summer things before that. But there's unfortunately no cool correlation that I could that I could get from his statistics or any type of awards that he got about that. But again, that is something that I do think, as much as I joke about, it was a talking point at some point. When we first acquired him, was like, oh yeah, he was really banged up from summer, and so I mean, obviously this summer he played all the way to the finals of the Olympics, and he even got benched a little bit at the end there. But yeah, overall, I do hope that if the Wolves want any type of a chance to make, like we said, winning multiple playoff series, then we need that Rudy that showed up today. And so it can't just be like, oh well, he's gonna play really good for a week and then he's gonna suck for a week. Like it has to be consistent because everything starts and goes with him in terms of the defense and even like you said, unlocking that offense and that short roll, that's something that we really expected from him. We saw that early in the season, when he was doing that a lot. And then the last like couple weeks, it looked really terrible until recently. It looks like he's playing better. So he really looked like he was playing enthused, though. I think at one point he blocked a Jokic floater where it's like outside of Wemby, like how many players are blocking a Jokic floater? And he also had like the spurt, I think it was in the fourth quarter, where he got 2 straight offensive rebounds just purely off hustle and effort, just kind of chasing him down. And one of them led to and 3. And even before that, after he got that second offensive rebound, you saw the Target Center crowd get on their feet and they were clapping, they were applauding because they were just so energized by how he was playing. Like how many times has that happened this season, Ryan, where Rudy's rebounding has got like the crowd's approval? If anything, we've seen the crowd
Right.
booed for us not getting offensive or defensive rebounds, right? So it was so great to see. So yeah, hopefully we get to have that moving forward from Rudy. And he seemed to be really aware that he was playing poorly. I mean, during any type of media availability, he's like, I know. He kind of alluded to being distracted. They didn't really talk about. He didn't go into detail about that. They're like, oh, is it other people or whatever? He's, no, just like myself. Whatever. I don't want to make any political statements here about that. But yeah, so hopefully Rudy's a little bit more locked in now, and we can continue seeing that moving forward. So I think it's capable, but until it proves it otherwise, I don't think he's going to play this great moving forward.
Yeah, I do. I mean, talking about distracted, I do think like obviously the Olympics might have played a role, but like he's a new dad. I
Yeah,
think that plays a role. Like him and Ant, there's a lot of new dads on this team, but like Ant was yeah, John Krasinski had a funny tweet. It was like, someone asked him, why is Ant sick? Or what is Ant sick with? He's like, he's got a newborn. It's just how it works. And I certainly, as someone with a toddler at home, like that makes a lot of sense to me. You're just kind of always constantly sick. So maybe that's that. And maybe that's the distraction Rudy's got kind of going on. He's taking care of his young one that was born on game 2 of the Denver series last year.
Denver. Yeah,
in the Jamal Murray towel game or the heat pack game, whatever you want to call it.
I will say that I did see someone post on social media that I think the day before the Nuggets game was Ant's partner's girlfriend's baby mama's birthday, and that like they were going out or something like that. So I don't want to speculate too much, but he probably just had a busy night between celebrating his partner and also, yes, like you said, taking care of his kid. And I think he even talked about it as well too, where like he said it in a interview where he's like, I gotta go home and be with my kid now. So yeah,
Yep.
100%.
Yeah, I'm curious, and I try not to ask obviously the players too much about their personal lives, but like how much like Dante's son was born during last year's playoffs. Nikhil's son, not during, but like right before. Nikhil's son was born towards the end of the regular season. Like I just think like that's
Jaden.
Yeah, Jaden too. I like obviously they have the resources to have like a nice sports system, but like you got to be distracted in some sort of way. Like obviously basketball is important, but like taking care of your kid and being on the road so much, like they've just been on the road so much. I'm sure, like Mike mentioned, getting practice, like just getting some time with his kids. I'm sure he's had very little of that recently. So yeah, I wonder how much that day to day affects the newest dads on the team. All right, next segment. Prey of the week. Who did the Wolves make their prey this week? Leo, who do you got?
I hate to say it because I think he's the best player in basketball in the world right now, but it's got to be Nikola Jokic for me. The Joker is the prey of the week. In the loss to the Wolves on Saturday, he was a season worst -24, and he was absolutely outplayed by Rudy Gobert as far as effect on the game. Now, if you look at the box score and look at, Jokic must have been taken out of the game. It's like, no, he played 32 minutes. He shot 9 of 13 from the field, had 20 points, 11 assists. I mean, all the stuff that you expect to see from him. But he had 7 turnovers. I'm not saying Rudy caused all 7 of those, but a lot of those were Rudy was playing the best that he could. He was covering so many bases out there. He was making life tough for Jokic, which is something that he hasn't been able to say a lot before. So he definitely, I think, had a chip on his shoulder going into this one against the Joker. So, yeah, I mean, it was a tough thing for Jokic. I feel like he must be getting sick of not only seeing, Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels and all of them, at Target Center, all the fans, but he's got to be sick of just Target Center in general because of them playing the chicken dance song. He wasn't on the court when this happened, but at the end of the game in garbage time, I forget who it was. I was at the free throw line, but it was near the end of the game, and the Wolves fans in attendance would get free chicken if he missed 2 free throws. And going back, it looks like it was either Julian Strother, I think it was Hunter Tyson actually was the one. It was Hunter Tyson who missed 2 free throws, and they started playing the chicken dance song. And for those of you who forgot or just never saw it, I believe it was Game 6 of the Western Conference semifinals, where the Wolves blew out, absolutely decimated the Nuggets, and they got that same thing. I think it was late in the game, fourth quarter. They missed 2 free throws, and they were playing chicken dance, and we all know what happened in Game 7 after that. So I'm sorry, Jokic, but you are the prey of the week for me.
Yeah, it was Strother. I was gonna say I just found it. if it was Tyson, I think people would have made their Tyson chicken nugget jokes. I think
Yay.
those would have gotten
There
off.
you go.
I appreciate the chicken dance reminder because now I don't have to buy lunch tomorrow. Luck for us in
Hey.
Minnesota, I can actually redeem the coupon, so that's nice. But yeah, I kind of playing off yours. I know I talked about. I just thought Jokic was bad in that game. Like obviously Rudy did a great job, but like, I don't know, just a bad game for Jokic. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm just gonna go with the Denver Nuggets at large because like the Wolves just have this team's number. I think like for whatever reason, and I think the biggest reason is I don't think they're good enough defensively. They do not have enough defensive talent on that team. I guess they're still kind of trying to work Aaron Gordon back in. He's coming off the bench, so maybe that certainly like they were putting Westbrook on Randall. They had no matchup for Randall. When Gordon comes back in the lineup, that's like an obvious easy put Gordon on Randall, so that fixes that. But even when Gordon kind of rejoins the starting lineup, they don't have anyone to guard Ant. Like I think Westbrook on Ant would be a disaster. I guess like the easy like Christian Brown would like be the like that doesn't I just think they don't have and like I think people think NBA nerds think Jokic is a fantastic defender, and I think casual people think Jokic is a terrible defender, and it lies somewhere in between. I think he's a very good system and team defender. The Nuggets have no problem guarding with him on the court. They've always like their on-off numbers. They're better defensively with Jokic on. So it's not to say Jokic is a bad defender, but like Ant struggles with like true rim protectors. Like when he gets downhill and there's like a big like Gafford and Lively on Dallas or Wemby. Everyone's struggling to score around Wemby at this point. But like Jokic is not that, and like that's like the biggest thing. Like Jokic does a great job like getting steals, deflections, and playing defense that way. But like just as a true rim protector, like especially a player coming downhill, like Ant, like I just think it's a bad matchup. And as much as like, and maybe it's easy to say after like Jokic plays terribly, but like that team relies on Jokic so much. And maybe the guy's probably going to finish as one of the 15, 20 at worst players in the NBA history. And certainly he might win his third MVP this year. If they can wins another title, you're kind of looking at top 10 ever, honestly. So maybe he's up for the task, but like, I just don't. I think the Wolves have a lot for them, and it would be as much as maybe people want a new playoff series. It would be fun to have another Denver Wolves playoff series. As much as we've seen them ad nauseum at this point.
Yeah, they would be the team the Wolves have played in the playoffs the most if they face them again, because they faced them in the 2004 run with KG MVP year, and they defeated I think it was first or second year Carmelo Anthony in the playoffs, and then obviously they had the 4-1 a gentleman's sweep 2 years ago, and then last year, and then so if they did them again, that would be pretty cool. I did want to give an honorable mention for Play of the Week to Russell Westbrook as well too. He was tasked with guarding Julius Randle in that game, and it went pretty much as you would expect it to go. Julius Randle pancake flattened Russell Westbrook twice in that game by just like big broing him in the paint, just like backing him down, give him a little shimmy, knock him down, just easy layup from there. And then Russ just complained to the refs, which is so funny because this is a guy that talks about, everyone's a baby, they're not big enough for him. And then when that happens, he's on the receiving side, you just see him complaining. And I do have to give kind of almost like another stupid like Prey of the Week or kind of Worst of the Week to, I think it was like either Bleacher Report or House of Highlights, but they posted like a reel or a clip on their social media about like, oh, Westbrook put the clamps on Julius Randle. And there was that one play where Russ gets a strip on Julius Randle. He's backing him down. And then it cuts off right before Russ goes full court and then just like loses the ball on a turnover. And it's just like, oh yeah, like, Russ had, Julius in clamps. And it's like, okay, that's like so misleading of what actually happened in that game was him just getting dominated. Literally the very first Wolves possession was a mid-post Julius Randle on Russ. He just hit like a jumper over him. So yeah. Kind of got to shout that out.
I have most of those type of accounts muted on social media. No shame to them. Do what you got to do to make a buck, but like it's just not the type of basketball content I enjoy. So I just kind of mute it out of my life. So I agree with you. That's kind of misleading, but Westbrook's kind of another guy. This recent stretch of Wolves play they just have Westbrook's number. I don't. It's almost unfair, kind of what they do to him at times. Although just looking at the box score, he played fine.
Yeah, he's been
uh,
having a better season, but yeah, every
he's
time it seems
he's
like
been great for them.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
worked. Like I think everyone was kind of skeptical at that addition for them, and it's worked. Obviously, when we've watched it against the Wolves, it hasn't been there. But like, yeah, that Westbrook signing has been like him and Jokic synergy there has worked. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's good for us in that sense. Yeah, next segment, Apex Alpha. Who was the Wolves' Apex Alpha, the leader of the pack this week? Leo, who you got?
I gotta go with Jaden McDaniels on this
Yeah.
one. Obviously, we know for the week earlier against the Maps, he had a career night against them. He scored a career high, and he was seemingly doing everything. And without him, the Wolves might have had to face a couple demons in the national narrative if they lost that Mavericks team. So he played really well, obviously, in that game. And then against the Nuggets, you don't really think of him as popping out as one of the top performers from the box score. But I mean, he had a quiet 13 points, 8 rebound, 4 assists, and 2 stock game. And he just played so confidently off the catch. And you really see that coming through, especially out of the corners. When he's grabbing it and going, I don't know if he's been talking to Nas Reed a lot more, but he looks like Nas, as soon as he catches that ball, he goes. And he's driving baseline, he's driving middle, he's drawing fouls, he's making his mid range shots, he's finishing on the inside. Like, again, he's much maligned for a lot of his lack of perimeter shooting, especially on those wide open corner threes. That I think those will come back with time as he kind of gets back into his confidence. But not only is he actually just scoring on his own and putting up points or getting fouls drawn, but he also had one play that really stood out to me is where it was off a catch action. He goes right down the middle and he lobbed it to Rudy on the weak side of the dunker spot,
Yeah.
and that really inspired a lot of hope that he might be slowly peaking into a new level that we've been like waiting for him to go. I'm not saying he's gonna end up like I think you and Jack talked about. He's not gonna be like Mikal Bridges overnight right now, but I mean seeing that growth from him where it's like okay, now it's not just about okay, how do I get mine, but like how do I create for others when I'm in that split second, that 0.5 mentality off the catch. Okay, if I'm not open, then like what's the next read? And he's seeing that, and so I'm really excited
Mhm.
about that. And again, I have to give him another shout out for his activity on the boards. I mean, he's had some
Yeah.
monster rebounding nights. Relatively speaking, I think rebounding nights that would make Andrew Wiggins like blush. It's just so great to see that. And we need that from him. And so the whole team has been rebounding better lately, except for Rudy, who granted he did have a great game against the Nuggets. But yeah, so Jaden really coming through there is great.
Yeah. The thing with Jaden that I've seen is just like not just settling for the open 3-point shot. Obviously, he's going to need to take and make those. At least at like a 35, ideally wide open corner ones, 40%. But I think we've just kind of seen that maybe that's not exactly what he's going to shoot. But like in this game, he just took 1 3 and made it. Wasn't even from the corner. And he made 5 of his 7 2-point shots. And like you said, he had a nice dish and then to Rudy. And then the other type of play that stood out to me was kind of the reverse where they hit Rudy with the short row pocket pass. And instead of standing in the corner for a wide open 3, he cuts and gets a wide open dunk. With all the highlights, it was a poor defensive rotation from Denver, but like still, like that's just a play we were not seeing earlier in the year. And so if Jaden continue to get those buckets along with those like lean fadeaway, leaner short mid range shots, that's just going to be huge for him and kind of not worry so much about the 3-point shot going in and out.
Yeah, I gotta also give one more shout out to him too. So in that Mavericks game, that career night game that he had, I have to give a shout out to him making a clutch free throw after Chris Finch iced him. It was at the end of the game where it was like he had to make 2 to make it a 4-point game, and we're like, we all know Jaden's not the guy that we would ideally want at the free throw line at the end of the game, but he makes the first one. It's like, all right, cool. Let's make the second one. The Mavs are out of timeouts, and for some reason, Chris Finch calls a timeout in between just to let Jaden think about it, and the Mavs kind of drop a play. But I mean, I
it does make
understand.
sense to me because you don't like the last thing you want is like them Jaden to miss it and you get an open 3. So
yeah, time
I get it.
Game and score. Yeah, I get that, but the optics of it was like everyone's laughing about like, oh, Finch is trying to ice Jaden. Obviously he wasn't trying to, but Jaden came back and stone cold, just like the demeanor that he has on his face. He knocked down that free throw that made it a 2-possession game, and the Wolves obviously walked off with a 1-point win after Kyrie's gave the bad beat for that the over under on that. So.
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings us to my Apex Alpha. I'm going to go with Anthony Edwards. Was obviously fantastic in that Denver game. 34 points on 14 of 23 shots, 9 assists. Really stands out. But the big news is that he passed Cat on the all-time Wolves 3-point list. So that's the first of many records that Ant will have in a Timberwolves uniform. If he plays here long enough, he's gonna kind of try to hunt down KG for points. And probably assists is probably, if he plays here long enough, that might be something he can try to eventually. He's already 6th in assists. That's like if you just go to Basketball Reference and look at some of the Timberwolves records, like some of them are like just crazy funny. Like just like Wiggins is just littered in these top, like among these record holders, just because like you play long enough, even if it's not like even if it's not an assist, like a stat you'd associate with Wiggs, like he's everywhere. Like he's 3rd all time in points. Like Cat and Wiggins are 2 of the top 3. Yeah, he passes Karl Anthony Towns. The top 5 is a fun list because it's all recent Wolves. And number 1, Anthony Edwards. Number 2, Karl Anthony Towns. Number 3, Wiggins. 4, Naz Reid. So Naz, and he's gonna pass Wiggs this year. So you're gonna have Ant and Naz, and then 5, D'Lo, which I get. That's like a perfect example of like D'Lo was here for what, 2.5 seasons, and that gets him 5th on the all-time 3-pointers list. That kind of leads us into our playtime segment. Like I said, Ant surpassed Cat. And you kind of wrote down here who would be up on this list for 3-pointers if they had played today in like this 3-point era. My first thought was KG. I think, and mostly because it's like because of how long he played here, and like let me scroll up to total games played, 970 compared to Cat at 573. So the game's played, but like KG would just shoot so many long twos, like just like heels on the 3-point line. It's like, bud, just they're worth 50% more if you just take one step back, man. I just think like KG would have been an awesome 3-point shooter if he played now. Kevin Love's another guy I think comes to mind with that. Obviously he did shoot threes when he here, but I think like they would have turned the knob up on that. Wally Zerbiak, I think, is another name. Like he shot like 3 a game. Like that's, I mean that's how it worked back.
That was a lot.
It was,
then.
but like nowadays, that he would be shooting like he'd be Malik Beasley, kind of like. And then the last name I kind of wrote down here was Anthony Peeler, because it wasn't that long ago that Anthony Peeler was their franchise leader in 3-pointers. So I just thought like obviously if he played now he probably still would be the leader until Ant passed him up in whatever number of years. But yeah, it was fun to see Ant get a record. I didn't realize Mike was the all-time leader in Memphis for points. I don't know why. I assumed it was Gasol, but it's Mike by a small margin. So that's like a fun trivia if you can name all like the points leaders. Like Bulls would be obviously Michael Jordan. That's a fun trivia.
I don't know if you've ever been on Sporkle.com.
Yeah, it's a good Sporkle.
Yeah. They have those quizzes, and actually, when I get bored, I'll spend like hours on there just trying to name like the top stat leaders of all the things, and like I'll finish with like
Hawk is Wilkins probably.
I think it was Wilkins. Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of fun to do that for sure.
Knicks is Ewing. Like I don't know, we don't have to go down the entire list, but yeah, who did you have? Like who would Wolves history would be if they played now would be atop this 3-point list?
Well, I'll say this. So you mentioned Anthony Peeler earlier. He's still number 6 right now all the time. So he's above actually Kevin Love for most 3-pointers made, in a Wolves jersey so far. And actually, when I first started watching the Timberwolves around like year 2000, 2001, I remember just kind of like not really knowing anyone other than who Kevin Garnett was. So I was really new to basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like entering middle school at the time, and I would go on the Wolves website and I would like look at the stats and look at who makes the most threes. Because for me, as like a short kid that didn't really know how to dribble, all I could do was kind of shoot. So like, all right, who's the best 3-point shooter on the team? And it was Anthony Peeler. I'm like, Peeler. Okay, number 44. I always remember him. And then fast forward a couple of years, he elbowed KG in the throat in the playoff series. But yeah, so shout out Anthony Peeler for that one. So I always have that. For me, who would maybe have been up there in the 3-point rankings. You mentioned Kevin Love earlier, but Malik Beasley had probably one of the most prolific 3-point shooting seasons as a short-term Wolf. Like he is
Yeah.
actually, when you look at the list, he is number 8 all time, and he only played like
That's
two,
like one season,
barely 2 seasons, like with the Wolves. If you kind of, because he came in, mid-season in the trade, and then he only really played 1.5 like full seasons here. So it's kind of crazy to think about how much he got up in that time, and so I would have loved to see him, be here. He's obviously doing it big for Detroit. He's technically hitting threes for Wolves right now to try and help us get our draft pick. So, shout out Malik. So glad that he's been able to stay, off any trouble off the court. And, you mentioned Kevin Love again. He would have been top 3, no question about it. I mean, we played in today's game. I mean, he was one of the first real volume shooting 3-point bigs, who actually specialize in shooting threes.
That's like his role now with Miami and Cleveland the past couple of years.
Still, fast forward almost 10 years later, he's still in the NBA, which is kind of crazy to think about. But my dark horse pick is going to be Randy Foye, fourth quarter Foye himself. I feel like he would have been a top 5 3-point shooter in Wolves history had obviously played here a little bit longer in today's game, because a lot of people remember Randy Foye as being, labeled kind of as a bust, but it's mostly because they compare him to Brandon Roy, who obviously a lot of us know he had, one of the greatest what if, seasons or careers ever.
Also a Timberwolf.
Yeah, it's true. Technically a Timberwolf too. But Randy Foye played 11 productive seasons in the NBA, and in those 11 seasons, he finished top 10 in 3-pointers made in 3 different seasons. And this was all before the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson Warriors really came to fruition, when 3-point shooting became cool. He was already shooting a lot of threes back then. So he's had multiple games where he hit 8 or more, 8 threes in a single game as well too. So Randy Foye could shoot that thing. And so, I would have loved to see him. I tried to invest in him when he was here with the Wolves. It just kind of didn't pan out. Obviously, it was some dark days back then. But I will say I do have Randy Foye's autograph on a Latrell Sprewell jersey in my closet right now. So
there you go.
Shout out Randy Foye. I think he would have been great in today's game. So
yeah. Going back to Love for a second, it is interesting to me how the Love trade they made over 10 years ago now, they still have assets from that trade. So they trade obviously Love for Wiggins. Wiggins turns into D'Lo, although they had to staple a pick to Wiggins, so it's not exactly but D'Lo obviously turns into Mike and Nikhil. And so they still it is a sliding doors moment of for the Wolves franchise. What if they never trade Kevin Love? Yeah. I mean, maybe it doesn't change much because they don't have Wiggins and they get Cat. Obviously, they wouldn't have been worse, or they wouldn't. Yeah, they wouldn't have been.
They would have been better. Yeah,
they would have. Yeah, so maybe they just instead of trading for, maybe they have Kuminga. They don't make they just sign D'Lo and they with cap space, and they get to draft Kuminga or whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting sliding doors moment. It's crazy to see K Love still playing in the NBA because it just feels like forever ago that he was here. I don't know if Miami wants to trade him away. If in some sort of Jimmy Randall trade where Jimmy goes to Phoenix or whatever. I don't know. Love would be a fun fit here.
I'm so jaded though, just from bringing former players that we love back to Minnesota, just for it to end poorly here, because I just want to see him happy at this point now. He's got a ring already.
Have you seen his Instagram post? He's trolling the Heat fan base, and
is he?
Yeah, he's posting memes about Bam Adebayo and Pat Riley and Jimmy. Oh, it's good stuff. Yeah, go check it out.
It gives me warm, fuzzy feelings because it reminds me of when, I don't want to say he trolled the Timberwolves fan base, but when he was he didn't quite demand a trade, but he was kind of asking for a trade a little bit, where he was kind of, obviously not super invested here. It was
and they needed to trade him. It was time to trade Kevin Love.
It was time, but it's just, it brings us back to a simpler time where we weren't thinking about okay, well, how do we win the NBA championship? Just kind of all right, how do we make the playoffs?
How do we end this streak? I mean, exactly, I think my first, not my first time watching the Wolves, my first time really watching them day to day, because when KG, I was a kid, there's a difference between watching a sports team as a kid and and as an adult watching them day. Right. So that first, that I was in high school, the Rubio Love team where they the closest they came to making the playoffs during that streak.
Pythagorean champs. Yeah.
That's my first team, really watching it, watching him day to day. But yeah, it was was time to let go of Kevin Love, and I mean, they got a good return. Like, obviously Wiggins didn't pan out, and like I think they always
at the time it was
I think Anthony
good.
Bennett, they always kind of, this is a flyer. We know it's not working out. It's as much to get a little bit extra salary in this thing as much as anything.
This is how much of a Wolves sicko I am. I was watching Anthony Bennett play in the Taiwanese Basketball Association 2 years, actually 1 summer ago. I was watching Anthony Bennett play still, and I was like, man, if he was playing in today's game, I bet you he could be hitting a lot of threes for the Wolves right now.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
He looks like he's 300 pounds, but, a happy 300 pounds.
Yeah, and it was like, what, the Wolves have had like half the number one picks from a certain stretch of play for the Wolves team.
Yep.
Wiggs, Cat, Anthony Bennett, Derrick Rose, and Ant. It was like,
it's all in a quick window.
Yeah. Very few, obviously, like Ant didn't play with Wiggs or D Rose, but like it was all within, certainly not Anthony Bennett, but it was all within a quick window too.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe another future number 1 pick might be around the corner for us. Maybe it's Markelle Fultz coming in, as a signing in the offseason. Who knows?
How about let's make the playoffs and not send Cooper Flagg to Utah.
There we go.
How about that?
There we go. I like that. Yeah.
It is annoying. Like, the year they have their pick is like a quote unquote down draft, and the first 2 years of like the sending Utah the pick is Wemby and Cooper Flagg. Like, can we just
like avoid a doomsday scenario, please, for once? Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so that's fun.
We'll be all right though,
for sure. Well, that'll move us into our last segment here. 2 words. My 2 words are 4 above. So the Wolves are now 3 games above 500. So they're going for 4 games above 500. This is the 7th time this year they've been 3 games above 500, and they're 0-6 in the first 6. They have not been 4 games above 500. Well, tomorrow is certainly their best chance. Trae Young is ruled out. Jalen Johnson is out. The Wolves are fairly big favorites. It's just a game you got to win. It would really be a bummer to lose to the depleted Hawks after that fun Denver game. So I'll be out there looking forward to be 4 games above 500 for the first time. And honestly, hopefully Finch said, like, I think we have a run in this team. Well, the Wolves have the easiest remaining schedule in the Western Conference by opponent win percentage. And they have a lot of home games kind of backlogged here too. So I guess if they're going to, maybe Finch is right, they get some easier opponents. They still have 4 Utah Jazz games on the schedule, most of which after the trade deadline, which I think is big because I just look at like the end of the schedule. They play Brooklyn twice in April. Like Brooklyn's in bad, but like there's an even lower step. Like, remember when they played, I think it was last season or maybe 2 seasons ago, there was a Portland Trailblazer team that I'm like, this is is like the worst NBA team I've ever seen for a single game.
It featured, I think, Brandon Williams, who cooked Rob Dillingham a couple times in the Mavs game the other day. It was like Brandon Williams, Trenton Wofford. I think it was that iteration.
Those were the good players. Those were like the starters.
Yeah, those were the starters.
Yeah. So, and yeah, like the 4 Jazz games I have circled. Obviously, they play Washington. The 2 Brooklyn games at the end of the year. Like, hopefully you win all. I mean, if you just win those crap games, like you're gonna be mid 40s, high 40s wins, just like sweeping up like those easy wins. Because like looking at some other schedules, like the Lakers only have 2 Jazz games left. Like a lot of these other teams don't have many of these crap games left, or the Wolves are kind of loaded with them. So, what were your 2 words, Leo?
Well, before I get to my 2 words, I will say, so in this Atlanta game, y'all, just if you play fantasy basketball, go ahead and go pick up Vic Krejci right now, because he's about to have a big revenge game against the Wolves. All right, Vic Krejci has been putting up numbers, and he will be playing and starting for a team that is going to be without Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. Right.
So yeah, pull up my website that I use for for fantasy basketball. Let's see if Vit Krejci is
Yeah, he's
listed
got a
like
back-to-back Monday and Tuesday. So I only say this because I've already looked into this. So if you want to make sure that you get a good
the
player in
site
there.
the site I use doesn't love him for tomorrow, but that doesn't mean
Hey, revenge
that
games, revenge games.
like, if you're looking for what categories is he good at, it doesn't love him. So
Nah, I mean, we'll
okay,
see.
there's
We'll see.
our
There's
fantasy. I
opportunity.
agree with you. That's like the revenge game. So
Yeah,
you're right.
It's a win-win
So,
scenario for you. It's a win-win scenario for you.
Fantasy basketball lingo. He's a stream for tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We waiver wire material right now.
Yeah.
And also, you did mention the Jazz, which the Wolves do play upcoming as well too. You talked about playing them a lot later on after the trade deadline. I have, speaking of fantasy basketball, I have Colin Sexton on one of my teams. I won't belabor the point, but they rested Colin Sexton on a game when they had 2 days rest right before. So that's what the Jazz are doing right now. Okay, they're just blatantly.
Weren't they? They were playing another crap team, weren't they? They were trying to.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think they may have lost. So so that's what the Utah Jazz are doing. And that's what the Wolves will be playing, I think, later this week as well too. So just kind of keep that in mind. They play them on Thursday at Utah on the end of a back-to-back. So again, trap game, maybe, who knows? But yeah, Ryan, for me, I'm going to say my 2 words. My 2 words are I'm listening. And no, I'm not talking about listening to trade requests. I'm not listening to your fake trades. I'm saying that I'm listening is that this team, I feel like, has given us no reason to believe in them. Not even just on the season, but from a game-to-game standpoint where they'll look like world beaters for 3 out of 4 quarters of a game and just completely fall apart in a quarter. But they're clearly asking us to listen to them by the way that they've been playing lately, and their chances to succeed further than we probably think they could succeed. So I am listening right now is how I feel that the Wolves, kind of where they are right now. Their state of the Wolves is I'm listening right now. So I'm definitely buying stock. They do have, as you mentioned earlier here, they play the Hawks tomorrow on Monday. Then they have the back-to-back 2-game road trip where they're going to go visit Phoenix on Wednesday, which will be an interesting game for sure. Because again, that's kind of finishing that last year's playoff opponents type run back tours. And then they do play the Utah Jazz at the end of a back-to-back in Utah on Thursday. And then they cap things off on Saturday against the Wizards at home. So again, that's 3 out of those 4 games. Like you have to win those games. And again, I understand it's 4 games in 5 nights, or 4 games in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nights here. So it is a lot of action, a little bit of travel, but they need to take those home.
I'm realizing right this second that Wizards game will be my second time attending a Washington Wizards game. In the year of our Lord 2025.
That's a real dedicated dedication by you.
Yeah, I'm a true basketball sicko. Instead of watching his football team play in the playoffs, goes to watch the Washington Wizards. That's
what I'm talking
where
about.
I'm at. And remember how the Vikings game season ended? Made the right choice. Honestly, didn't need to watch that slop anyway. But yeah, like you said, like 3 of these next 4 games, Atlanta, Utah, Washington, are injured Atlanta. Like, just games you got to win. I mean, there's honestly, all of these next games are winnable. I don't know if they'll be favored in Phoenix. I don't know what their injury report is like, but like, they're going to be favored in a good stretch of these games for the next week or 2. So if you can go 6-1, 5-1, kind of get back out of the dredges of the playing kind of picture and catapult where we kind of feel like they should or could be, I think that'll be big. But if you lose a couple of these games, like tomorrow night, that's kind of what they've been doing all year. If they lose this and they're 0-7 in games where they're trying to get 4 games, like I don't even know what I'll do. So hopefully we get a win tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm begging Chris Finch and the assistant coaches to use some bulletin board material here going into tomorrow's game and not be like, oh, well, Trae Young's out, Jalen Johnson's out, whatever. But to think about, they played at Atlanta 2 days before Christmas, December 23rd. I'll never forget that game because I was coming back from Mexico from my sister-in-law's wedding, or their wedding, their vow renewals. And I remember going into the airport in Mexico and thinking like, all right, looks like they're going to handle the Hawks here. Looks like they're starting to put them away. It's like, I should be good to put my phone on airplane mode as we're about to take off now. And as I land and I turn it on, after a 3-hour flight, I see that the Wolves had dropped the game to the Hawks. And I was like, so pissed. I was like, dude, this is terrible. Like that was like their string of 3 losses, I think, that they had, or their 3rd loss in a row. So yeah, so put that on their bulletin board. Like, it's time to get their get back against the Hawks tomorrow.
Yep, that'd be nice. We'll see kind of maybe I'll ask that pregame about just kind of the intensity without Trey there. Probably Ant is always the player kind of to watch out for with the resting, but he's given no indication of doing that of late, so we'll certainly give him the benefit of the doubt there. But yeah, that'll do it for us here today. Schedule kind of the next week. I get Andrew Dukowitz coming on Friday, and then Leo and I will be back similar time next week to talk about hopefully a stretch of Wolves wins, and God forbid, hopefully not a loss to the Washington Wizards. That's not what we want. But yeah, for Ryan, I'm Leo. For Leo, I'm Ryan. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Get home, drive safe.